Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a betting perspective. With pro sports handicappers Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and various guests from the world of hockey and sports betting. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys, Wednesday, March 18th. Ian Cameron and Alex B. Smith with you, ready to break down the Wednesday NHL card. And, Wednesday we usually get those shorter NHL slates, smaller than Tuesdays and Thursdays. But what we're lacking a little bit in quantity, we're making up for in quality. There's some really good games tonight. Of course, there's a huge showdown in the Central first place battle, Dallas, Colorado, which will be the second game of tonight's TNT doubleheader. A great game, obviously looking forward to that. Ottawa, Washington, big playoff implications there. Pittsburgh, Carolina, and the return of Sidney Crosby for the Penguins. I mean, there's lots to look forward to here on this Wednesday, and I like this card too, so looking forward to talking about it in just a bit. But first, as always, by the way, Perla will be with us in a little bit, but before we get to tonight's games, we'll, as always, look back on the previous night on Tuesday. It was a busy Tuesday night in the NHL, and it was a profitable night, and it was a really good night, I think, for Alex. I mean, it sure looked like, from what I was seeing, and just in the back of my mind as the games were unfolding, I was remembering what Alex had sent me for the Patreon card, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I mean, he's hitting a lot of these things here. Holy mackerel. Yeah. So yes, it was a very good night. It was a good night for me. It was a very good night for you, and it started with Boston, Montreal. That was a great game. Your best bet was both teams to score at plus 172 in the first period. Phenomenal. Barely halfway through the first period for that one to hit with the Bruins and the Habs as they both got on the board in the opening 20 minutes. It was a really good hockey game. I thought Montreal, everybody's been ripping their defensive performances lately, that they've been giving up too many good chances, too many goals. I thought they finally had a better effort defensively. Some of the players that have struggled in their own end, like a Jaden Struble, certainly like a Lane Hudson, who's had some tough times in his own end lately. I thought he played a better game last night. The whole team you could tell there was more of a concerted focus we got to tidy things up in our own zone. And they did a pretty solid job of doing that. They got the game to overtime. And then, of course, Cole Caulfield getting the game winner. Lovely assist sent his way. And Hudson and Suzuki with the assists, and Montreal with a big 2 points after losing both games at home to the California teams over the weekend. So a 3-2 win for Montreal, big 2 points for them. Still a big point in defeat for the Boston Bruins because every point valuable at this time of year. New York Islanders 3-1 win against Toronto as the mini little Leaf resurgence gets cooled off, at least for one game. The Islanders power play certainly did some damage early, getting them to that 2-0 lead, and then they basically cruised to victory from that point on, 3-1. Another incident last night where Joseph Woll gets bumped, and Morgan Riley drops the gloves with Kyle McLean there. And like I said, the Leafs are taking every opportunity now to show that, hey, we're not going to let that happen again, like what happened to our captain, Austin Matthews, and we stand around, do nothing. But good win for the Islanders, 3-1 over Toronto. And just like usual with the Leafs, could have been worse if not for Joseph Woll. I still thought he played a pretty solid game in net. How about the Columbus Blue Jackets? And, this is the plight for me with the best bet on the show lately. It was between Winnipeg and Columbus, and I went with Winnipeg, and of course they lost in a shootout. Columbus was the other one I was considering, and they ended up just putting it to Carolina. What a win for the Blue Jackets last night, 5-1 against I love the home dog price. I said, with the way they're playing, Carolina's been a little spotty right now, and Brandon Bussey continues to be a little spotty. 5 goals allowed last night. The post-Olympic break decline and downturn continues for Brandon Bussey last night. Jet Greaves was rock steady, rock solid. 1 goal against in 28 shots. Very, very good performance, and a huge 2 points for Columbus because they are now, with that win, thanks to being percentage points ahead of Boston, they are now in a wild card spot after last night's win. And I think they're going to get, the more I watch this Jackets team and the way they have come together as a complete team, top to bottom under Rick Bowness, I think they're getting in. I really believe that. I think they're getting in. I mean, this is not just a coach bump anymore. This is extended strong play that is continuing now. And it's one thing to have a little hot streak and a little spurt when you make a coaching change. Every team does that pretty much. But when you go this deep now and this long of a run where you've played this kind of hockey, like what is it, 14-2-1, something like that, under Rick Bowness, it's just been incredible. I think it's got staying power. And I think it's going to get Columbus into the playoffs. I like the way they're playing. It was a great fight, heavyweight battle in this game, too. Nick Delorier, new member of the Carolina Hurricanes with Matthew Olivier. What a scrap that was, right at the center ring, essentially, because they dropped the gloves at center ice. So a nice win there for Columbus, 5-1 over Carolina. This turned out to be an entertaining game. Minnesota-Chicago, the first TNT game last night. Great comeback by the Blackhawks, and it's a bargain bin special winner for Alex last night. Frankie Nazar getting that game tied in the final 2 minutes, 3-3. And then in overtime, Chicago had all the momentum going into overtime. And keep in mind, Minnesota had lost 2 in a row at home to the Leafs and Rangers. So it definitely felt like there was some momentum on Chicago's side. But the problem is Chicago just never had the puck in overtime. I mean, Minnesota basically had it from start to finish. And then they just poor Tyler Bertuzzi. That guy was out on the ice for like 2.5 minutes, when that goal finally went in, courtesy of Matt Zuccarello. But Minnesota survives, and they get a huge 2 points considering where they're at, battling with Dallas and Colorado in the Central. A 4-3 win there for the Minnesota Wild in that game. Nashville beats Winnipeg 4-3 in a shootout. Disappointing to see the Jets lose that. They were up 2-1. Nashville got 2 goals with Forsberg and Wood. Matthew Wood gave them the lead. How about Jonathan Taves, though, tying that game 3-3, and Alex did have the draw, so a huge goal there for that with the Predators and the Jets. But the Predators get the victory in the shootout 4-3 over the Winnipeg Jets. But still for Winnipeg, a big point collected in that loss, considering that every point's valuable. They still have a lot of work to do, but getting a point was still very important. Edmonton, I warned everybody yesterday, Draisaitl being out, watch them pull together. They did that. 5-3 win for the Edmonton Oilers over the San Jose Sharks last night. And once again, kind of maybe had a gut feel that game could stay under, but it went totally the other way. 8 goals last night. Wasn't a great night, really, defensively for San Jose. They get obviously scored on for Delkovich, gives up 5. It was a bit of an ugly game from that standpoint. Connor Murphy gets on the board, too, for the Edmonton Oilers, the former Blackhawk. Gets one of the goals last night. Podkolzin, Nugent Hopkins, Zach Hyman, Max Jones. So it was a different goal scorer, 5 different goal scorers, none of them named Connor McDavid. And that's a good sign for Edmonton. Not a good sign. That was Alex's other bargain bin last night. Connor McDavid over 1.5 goals. But it's a good sign for Edmonton because that's what they need more of. You need more of games like that where you get 5 different goal scorers, and for once it's not McDavid that's in on the ceiling. You need that every now and then, but a very, very solid response and a good pull your bootstraps up type of performance in the first game without Leon Draisaitl, which we often see. I said that yesterday. NHL, NBA, it's uncanny how many times the first game without one of your best players, everyone collectively steps up and you still get the job done. And Edmonton did last night, Alex. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, now watch McDavid do all the heavy lifting in their next game and end up having, a hat trick and 5 points or something. That's kind of how the balance goes, right? If it's either everybody else doing the job or number 97 doing the job when 29 is not around. But still, like I said, a good effort and a good win for them, especially going up against a team that's chasing. That's the thing. You have to play these teams that you're chasing and teams that are chasing you as tough as possible. And look no further than that Winnipeg Nashville game. That game, for 2 teams who are out of the playoff picture trying to climb back in, that was one of the more entertaining games the entire night.
Yes.
In my opinion, you got Jonathan Taves, like I said, getting that game-tying goal, and you could feel that momentum. Somebody in the chat had a question too, a basic hockey question, saying, why do you see a goalie skate off with a couple minutes left? Teams will pull their goalie down a goal or down 2 goals to get an extra attacker on the ice. That's what Winnipeg did in that spot late to get that game tied. So to answer that question in the chat, that's the reason why you'll see that they give their team an extra man advantage in certain spots when they're trailing. And this is the time of year where you'll see that, and seeing close games where that 1 goal lead, it certainly isn't safe. The Blackhawks, coming back and rallying back against the Wild, they were pressing. It was kind of up and down, pace in that third period. Frank Nazar, who had a ton of chances throughout the game, finally burying one late, getting that game tied. And that's, big for Minnesota to get that second point, because they, once again, good start, but a terrible finish. We've seen 3 or 4 bad third period efforts from the Minnesota Wild moving forward now, against teams that you're supposed to be dummying. You're supposed to dummy the Blackhawks, a team that you have a very good regular season record against. You're supposed to be dummying, the New York Rangers and Toronto, teams that are well out of the race and have conceded their spots for this year. And they're just letting these teams hang around and continue to be in games. So it's still problematic for the Wild, despite getting the second point and that extra win. Their form's still not that great. And like I said, that Boston-Montreal game, and it couldn't have been any better. Not only catching both teams to score, but catching the first period over. And we both, like that game, just like I said, had goals early and then slowed down a bit. And sure enough, it did. And we got the draw as well, plus 332. So like I said, it was a fantastic night. I hit a couple of live bets as well throughout the evening. So very fantastic night. Hope we can kind of duplicate that effort again here tonight.
No doubt, no doubt. Like I said, it was a profitable night for me. It was a really good night for you. We'll hope to keep it going in spite of the best bet skid that I'm on, which, like I said, for me, I'm still happy with last night. And that's why I always stress to people, my best bet amount is very little, is very often not much more than the rest of the money or the bets or the amounts I put on the other bets. So while I'm flummoxed at how every day I'm landing on the wrong game, as far as best bet these last several days, it's still been a pretty good, solid last few days overall. So I'm still happy about that, no question. As far as the late games, there's a couple late games we didn't talk about yet. Buffalo 2-0 against Vegas. This was one hell of a road win by them, because Vegas, I thought, played a pretty solid game, all things considered. This is a team that was building some momentum. They had beaten Pittsburgh and Chicago in back-to-back games. Start of a road trip. There's a revenge spot, too, for Vegas. They had lost in Buffalo just recently as well. And you thought that maybe, just maybe, it was going to be one of these situations where, they just run it into Pittsburgh Vegas at the wrong time. But yeah, they were very good defensively. Yeah, Vegas, picked it up in the third, and they were carrying the play a little bit. But it was a great, just gut check effort. You're going to have to win games like that in the playoffs. And we've got to assume the Buffalo Sabres are going to be there now in the playoffs. But you got to assume that certainly that's the way, that's going to be the blueprint. You got to be able to maintain those 1-goal leads in the third period in order to have success in the playoffs. The Sabres were able to do that. And a large reason that they were able to do that last night was because of this guy. Let's hit it.
Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen.
I could listen to that on loop all day. Just that impeccable, just exquisite Finnish accent pronouncing his name like that. And actually the cadence of it sounds like pick the back of pickled peppers when he says it in Finnish, quite honestly. But what a game it was for UPL. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, or I guess if you say it in the Finnish accent, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. There you go. He was terrific last night for the Buffalo Sabres, and that was one of the better games he's played. He's had a few of them. That one was right up there last night, the way he played in net for the Buffalo Sabres, and a nice 2-0 shutout win for them over Vegas. Nice bounce back for Tampa Bay. They lost at home to Carolina, starting a road trip, and they put it to Seattle 6-2. What a freaking night for Kucherov. Just when we, a lot of times his big moments don't get talked about, and sometimes they even get glossed over compared to when Connor McDavid has a big night, or Sidney Crosby has a big night, or Nathan McKinnon has a big night. But what a night it was last night for Nikita Kucherov. Hat trick and 5 points on the night. He factored into 5 of the 6 Tampa Bay Lightning goals last night and ended up with the 6-2 victory. Hagel had 4 points. Yep. Aaron, great point. He had a phenomenal night. I think it was that interview with Colby Armstrong, which was very funny in the pregame show that maybe got Brandon Hagel going last night. But the bright side, even in the losing cause for Seattle, is another goal for Bobby McMahon. Getting on the board once again for the Seattle Kraken last night. And that now, since Bobby McMahon's been in the lineup, it's not only the offense has been better, it's not only that he's produced, it's 3-0 to the over for Seattle since they put Bobby McMahon in the lineup and he made his Kraken debut. Like I said, they got more of an offensive lineup. Last night, obviously, they gave up 6, but you can tell they've been a little bit better offensive team. So I don't think it's a coincidence that it's been 3 straight overs for Seattle with Bobby McMahon in the lineup. And then the last game of the night, this is when you could kind of tell for Florida that I don't want to say they've mentally checked out, but to lose 5-2, to the Vancouver Canucks, that tells you where Florida's at right now. I think that it's basically reality is sinking in right now with this group, top to bottom. No chance to three-peat, not making the playoffs, injuries galore too. Let's not forget that this team is still a banged up team. Reinhart and obviously Bennett, was banged up. And others. So, like I said, it's just a very, very injury-riddled team still, the Panthers, but still not a good look losing to the Vancouver Canucks 5-2 last night, but we did cash the over in that game. And I think that's something to watch for now with Florida, Alex. The Seattle game and the Vancouver game, both of them they lost. Defense is kind of letting go of the rope. And we know Bobrovsky's had a bad year, a down year. We don't fully trust Tarasov, night to night when he's in net. This is a team that's starting to give up goals. And I think defensively, the foundation of this team and their back-to-back cups, they're letting go of the rope defensively. And I guess from a mentality standpoint, it's understandable. This just season from hell that's transpired for them. And it's hard to play strong, hard, tenacious, intense defense now with where they're at.
Yeah, and we've talked about this for probably the entirety of this program, where teams, we've had 2 stretches of teams now in Tampa Bay before, now Florida, of going 3 straight years where you've won your conference, making these runs in the playoffs. We talk about how at some point you're going to wear down, and these teams were kind of defying that law for the longest of time, and now Florida has truly fully embraced kind of the tank of a team that has played a lot of important hockey, meaningful hockey, winning hockey over the last 3 years, and now you're seeing that. And I was worried yesterday, okay, this could be a high-scoring roll the puck out game, but I thought it would be more still Florida, giving the effort, taking it to a weaker team in Vancouver, the team that had been struggling offensively. Like you said, for their defense to be lacking now against the Vancouver, that opens the door for us to bet overs against anybody that's even a shred better offensively than how the Canucks are playing right now. So that's kind of the only way you can attack Florida games. You can't really back them, but certainly can look for goals. And if you got an opponent that you feel trustworthy enough that can score on most teams, and you can go on and take those overs against Florida, not have to overlook it. But just kind of touch quickly on Buffalo and Vegas before we get to tonight. Great win for Buffalo. That's another bad loss for Vegas, because that's a game, and we talk about it, for Buffalo, you're not used to playing those games. In a late in the season, tough environment. T-Mobile Arena is still one of the harder arenas to play in. And to shut down Vegas, get a shutout win, get 2 goals and play scrappy playoff style hockey when you're not used to it, when most of the guys on that team haven't done that, that's huge. And to do it against a team like Vegas where they've relished in those wars, we've seen them play their best playoff hockey in that kind of style and atmosphere, and to not bring it in that spot last night. Now you look at this team hanging in 3rd place, just 5 points ahead of LA, 6 points ahead of San Jose. Like I said, I think my ticket's live for them to miss the playoffs. This is a team that I still do not trust right now. And when you're talking about LA getting their jump back with DJ Smith and playing a little bit more up-tempo, San Jose is still hanging around in some tougher games where we kind of would tend to see them fall out of at this point. Seattle, as you mentioned, now 3-0 to the over, getting some offensive punch. Nothing is solidified in that Pacific. I keep saying that. And teams like Edmonton, who, yes, they had a great win last night, but still, how do things go the next couple of games without Draisaitl, and a team like Vegas who continues to lose? Talk about teams who are winning games they normally lose. Vegas is now losing games they normally win, and that's problematic as you're heading down the stretch.
All right, yeah, no doubt. Like I said, Vegas not back on track just yet. Not back on track just yet, obviously. The Pittsburgh and Chicago wins were nice at home, but disappointing to take a step back last night against Buffalo in that loss to the Sabres. All right, let's get into the Wednesday card. It's a good one, and we'll begin with Pittsburgh, Carolina. We got Carolina minus 140, home favorites, 6.5 the total here in this one. Big news, obviously, is the captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins, Sidney Crosby, is back. What a remarkable recovery And it tells you how hard this guy works off the ice to keep himself in just the perfect condition. And it's because of the fact that he works so hard at training off the ice that I think allows him to come back earlier than projections indicate as far as from a significant injury. Like they didn't have him back until a week or two from now initially when we heard that he was going to miss time after the Olympic break with the injury suffered in Milan. And yet here he is, probably a week or two back earlier than projections, and it just speaks to how well he takes care of himself, Sidney Crosby, and that he's back already. It looks like he will be centering Rust and Raquel on the top line, back to that familiar position, and that all of a sudden means now your center ice position is back kind of much more in order with Kindle, Novak, and Dewar following that down the middle. You got Mantha, Kindle, and Brazeau on the second line, Shinikov, Novak, and Malkin the third line, Elmer, Soderblom, Connor Dewar, and Nola Chari on the fourth line. So obviously Penguins will be happy to have Sidney Crosby back here in this one. Pittsburgh's playing good hockey. I mean, this is something we forecasted incorrectly. We're not going to get it right all the time. And I thought Pittsburgh, with this brutal schedule coming out of the Olympic break, I mean, based on strength of schedule and the combined record of their opponents, this was the team that had the number one toughest strength of schedule coming out of the Olympic break. And and with Crosby being out, we kind of thought that, Pittsburgh might just fall out of the playoffs. That's certainly not looking like it's going to be the case now, with what they're only 4-6 in their last 10 games. But these back-to-back road wins they got at Utah and at Colorado, thumping the Avs the other night, now getting Crosby back, and it's hard to envision a scenario where they fall out at this point in time. And in fact, if you look at the way the schedule sets up for the Penguins, they actually play Carolina twice in the next 3 games. Let's say they go 2-0, and let's say they win both games in regulation, they could pick up 4 points. They could pick up 4 points head-to-head against Carolina and still all of a sudden maybe have a little bit of a puncher's chance to actually win the division. Now, there are 7 back going into tonight. It's still asking a lot, probably, for Pittsburgh to win the Metro, but they can at least think about the possibility if they're able to win these 2 games that they've got coming up with Carolina. Pittsburgh is off and it's kind of a weird situation because Pittsburgh's got the rest advantage, but it is their 5th and final road game before they head home. And Carolina's on a back-to-back, but they're on a back-to-back off a loss that I'm sure they're not going to be happy about, losing to the Columbus Blue Jackets 5-1. It is going to be Skinner in net for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Not a surprise. Dan Muse has been rotating between Artur Shilovs and Stuart Skinner for a while. So it's Skinner's turn after Shilovs got the start against Colorado. It will be Freddie Anderson for Carolina on a back-to-back after it was Bussy last night. Don't look now, but Freddie Anderson, the old man, has actually won 3 straight starts. Now, he hasn't played great in every start, but 3 straight times he started, Carolina has won. He gave up 3 goals in a 6-3 win against Edmonton. He gave up 4 goals, but that was against this Pittsburgh team just 8 days ago. Remember, that was the game Carolina was up 4-2. Pittsburgh got 2 goals in the last couple minutes of the third to tie the game 4-4. But Carolina rescued themselves with a 5-4 victory in that one. But still a victory on the board for Freddie Anderson as a starter. And then in the last game he started against Tampa Bay just a few days ago, rock solid. I know he only faced 19 shots, but only 2 goals allowed in a 4-2 Carolina win. So it was, it's been a little bit better from Anderson. I'm not going to go so far as to say he's been terrific during this stretch, but he's been a little bit better. I still think Pittsburgh right now, with Crosby back, with the Carolina leakage defensively, which has been alarming. They gave up 5 to Columbus, 3 to St. Louis, 4 to Pittsburgh in just the meeting here in Carolina between these teams 8 days ago. They gave up 4 in a 5-4 shootout win, 5 allowed to Calgary at the end of that road trip, 3 to Edmonton, 4 to a bad, bottom feeder Vancouver team. So the point I'm making is if you look at this recent form of Carolina defensively, they've given up 3 goals or more in most games. And we've got this Pittsburgh team total at 2.5. What I'm going to do here is I'm not going to take Pittsburgh money line because I think Carolina is going to play hard and be able to score some goals here. I'm going to go with Pittsburgh pregame. There's a -146 on the team total, over 2.5 at Pinnacle. I'm going to just sprinkle ever so slightly in that pregame. Wait for that team total to drop a bit into the first period, and I'm going to grab a little more over 2.5 once that thing gets closer to even money early in the game. But I think Penguins might be able to get to 3 here tonight against Carolina in this one. It's certainly I lean over. My one concern with this over, even though I think it could be goals here, is we just saw 5-4 8 days ago. And I know Aaron's subscribes to this theory, and it's sometimes when you get that 5-4 game, you're playing the very next week, it's the opposite happens, and you see teams tighten up. It was 9 goals between them 8 days ago. Penguins, Hurricanes in Carolina. Maybe you see something different here tonight. But it's hard to bet an under right now with Pittsburgh. They've been on this crazy over streak. I've been on it a bunch. Pittsburgh now 6 straight overs going into this game tonight. You look at this number right now at 6.5, minus 105. I will dabble in the full game over. I'll probably look for a first period over live, though. I don't want to lay minus 145.50 is what I'm seeing out there with it pregame. So I'll wait for that to drop a little bit in game. So a little bit on the full game over pregame, a little bit on the Pittsburgh team total over 2.5 pregame. We're going to wait to see if we can get the 2.5 on the team total at a better number in game. And same thing with the first period over. I'm waiting for that price to drop before I bet it. Alex, what do you think here? Pittsburgh, Carolina.
Yeah, this should be a fun game. And like you said, Pittsburgh's not completely out of this metropolitan race, especially if you take care of business against the Canes in games like this. But I feel this is one where it kind of has almost that feel like we see with Boston, Montreal last night. Early pace and then kind of taper off and slow down. So I like both teams to score in the first period pregame plus 164. Yep. I will be grabbing first period over live. I'm not going to lay 140 for that. And I'm more focused on first period over than full game over because of that reason. So I might grab a little piece if we see this maybe just be completely slow 5-6 minutes in. I might grab a piece of full game over as well if it gets in that 5.5 range. But I'm targeted more on first period over along with both teams to score. And pregame, I bet the draw plus 331 over at Bet Online. We've seen draw history with these two teams. This matchup, the last matchup we saw against them, like you mentioned, 5-4, that was a shootout. 2 of the last 3 have gone past regulation. Like I said, Pittsburgh getting Crosby back, that's a humongous boost. And a Canes team that's been, like I said, juggling wins and losses of late. I thought they were going to really bring it last night. I thought Bussy was going to have a step-up performance. He certainly did not. So now, if you're Carolina, you have to at least be in that position of, yes, you're lead by 7 points, but you can't, falter. If you're down 3-2 in this game, you got to try and make a push to tie and at least get a point out of this meeting, because you don't want to be looking back, like I said, 2 weeks later, and all of a sudden here's Pittsburgh 2-3 points right behind you, or possibly tied or up with you, leading the division.
Yeah, it's great points. And yeah, this does feel like it could be Boston, Montreal deja vu, where we get a 1-1 first period. It was 1-1, by the way, 8 days ago after the first period when they played in Carolina, Penguins and Hurricanes. They both scored in the opening 20 minutes. So that first period, both teams to score, kind of feels like it could be a spot for that here tonight. As far as goal props, we've got 4 players that have scored in back-to-back games. Svechnikov, but only plus 210 for Carolina. Brian Rust, but only plus 225 or so for Pittsburgh. But here's the ones that have the value. Anthony Mantha, who we've talked about, has had a resurgent season for Pittsburgh, plus 340. He's scored in back-to-back games. He's a good player prop bet. And Noel Acciari is the other one. 2 straight games with a goal. And if you even go back further, he's had a bunch of scoring chances lately. He's been noticeable. He's been getting opportunities, most shifts that he's on the ice, even though he's down the lineup for Pittsburgh. He only plays a 4th-line role for this team, but you wouldn't know it with the opportunities to score goals that this guy's been getting. So it's not just that he's scored in back-to-back games, Noel Acciari. It's that going even further back, he's had opportunities to put the puck in the net. So you can find plus, 950 for him to find the back of the net tonight for Pittsburgh. That's certainly some solid value. At BetMGM's got him at plus 950. Really good price for that. On the Carolina side, obviously I mentioned Svechnikov already, but I will say that, Hall, Stankoven, and Blake, Jonathan threw out in the chat that Mark Jankowski's had success scoring in the past against the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's definitely something to keep in mind as well. The head-to-head numbers bear that. Brazeau's actually had success against Carolina. Stankoven's had success against Pittsburgh in the past. Nikishin has scored in the past from the blue line for Carolina against Pittsburgh as well. So those are some goal considerations for props tonight, for me at least here in this one. All right, New Jersey Devils, New York Rangers, the first game of tonight's Wednesday night TNT doubleheader. New Jersey minus 120 road favorites, 6 the total in this game. This was an overnight / early morning game that I got it in as far as the total here. It's been a pretty consistent discussion point on this show of late that this New Jersey team is they're playing track meet hockey. Like, let's not kid ourselves. They're playing up and down, pond hockey, trade chances, scoring goals, but giving up goals as well. It's been pretty consistent from them. It's now a 5-1 over streak for the Devils in their last 6 games. I think that continues tonight. 2 teams not making the playoffs roll the puck out. They just played about 11 days ago in New Jersey. There were 9 goals in that game. It was a 6-3 win for the New Jersey Devils in that game. So this is a pretty straightforward over by Fecta here for me with Devils and Rangers. I got over 5.5 at minus 130 early today. And then once Jonathan Quick was announced as the starting I almost said quarterback. No, he's not playing for the New York Jets. He's playing for the New York Rangers. Thank God for that. He's not playing for the New York Jets. Starting goalie for the New York Rangers, Jonathan Quick. Once he got announced in, that 5.5s got wiped out. And we saw 6s, and we're seeing 6.5. So no respect in the betting markets here for Jonathan Quick, because the moment he was announced as the starter, that's when this total just got steamed. 5.5's gone all the way up to 6, 6.5. Now, he was in net for that 6-3 loss to New Jersey earlier this month. He gave up 5 goals in that defeat. So keep that in mind. That being said, the last time he started, it was a great game, shutting out the Calgary Flames. 21 save shutout, 4-0. But Calgary has obviously had some issues at times putting the puck in the net. So you do have to take that quick shutout performance with a grain of salt. And you know my feelings on Jacob Markstrom right now. He's just not been very good. Those are the Boston game. He wasn't great. He was terrible against Calgary when they lit him up last week. He's back in net tonight for the New Jersey Devils. So goals galore. It would not shock me to see that here. Alex, what do you think? Devils, Rangers.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on the over by Fecta. I did not grab 5.5, though. I grabbed 6 minus $1.15. I got minus 125, which is still available in that first period over at Bet Online. And I grabbed a little piece of the draw. There's only 3 draws I like. This is one of them. I could definitely see this one just being 4-4. If I had to go with correct score guess, it'd be 4-4, maybe even 5-5. Because like you said, 2 teams that are rivals, don't like each other, but certainly would be playing for pride and a national TV audience. This just feels like it could be a fun game in the sense of not much defense and a lot more offense. So over by Fecta and the draw for me.
All right, the draw as well. Vinny Trocheck, back-to-back games with a goal for him for the New York Rangers. Jesper Bratt's a bit of a streaky player, and he's obviously not had a great offensive season compared to what we've seen from him at times in the past, but he did score last game. And now you're actually finally getting some better prices with him, over that plus 300 threshold for Jesper Bratt. Paul Cotter, he scored the game winner in overtime against Boston in the last game for the Devils. You're getting a pretty good price there. Connor Brown scored last game. You get him at plus 360. I think for the New York Rangers, when I look at their goal props, like I've basically been talking to Noah Laba, didn't score last game, but he's been picking it up a little bit at the offensive end. There's probably some value with Ty Cartier on that third line. It's never the worst idea. We talked about Trocheck back-to-back games with a goal. It's never a bad idea for Will Cooley. He's always a Ranger that gives you a good effort most nights. And then, of course, you've got the Gabe Perreault, who I think has got great value still as long as he stays up on the top line for that New York Rangers with Zibanejad and Lafreniere for the New York Rangers. So, yeah, definitely, like I said, it feels like a game where we should see some goals, very similar. And New Jersey's on this great overrun. And we saw 9 between them the last time they faced off earlier this month. All right, Ottawa Senators, Washington Capitals. Big game here, playoff implications. Both teams on the outside looking in. We have Ottawa minus 135 road favorites. The total here at 6 across the board. I view these teams as 2 teams that are in different spectrums right now. I view Washington as a team that's played very lethargic, very lackluster, very uninspiring hockey. Their offense has not been clicking. They've scored 2 goals or less now in 6 of their last 7 games. The offense has just not been firing for them. especially at 5-on-5. If you look at a lot of these games where they've scored 2 or fewer, in the Utah game, both of their goals were power play goals. In the Philadelphia game, their only goal was a power play goal. So in some of these instances where they've scored 2 or fewer, a lot of it's been power play damage. They're getting nothing at 5-on-5 right now, this Washington Capitals team. So their offense is really concerning at this point in time. That was a costly loss for them against Boston. That's a team that you've got to catch. It's a team you wanted to beat in regulation. You were not able to do it, you let Boston get a point, but you let them get both points and the victory with that 3-2 shootout win over the weekend. So that was a very costly loss for Washington. You turn that around to Ottawa, and their numbers are great. They're 5-1 in their last 6. Their defensive game is in a really good way right now. They're not giving up much. Shots against, the chances against are low. They're making life easier for their goaltenders. In this case, Linus Ullmark, who's going to get the start tonight. And Jarek says it in the chat, 11-1-3 in his last 15 starts, which is pretty impressive. And look, Logan Thompson's not at fault for what's going on with Washington. He's played pretty well for the most part during this little slide that they're on. It's not just a little slide anymore with Washington. I mean, this is a team that is just 2-5 in their last 7 games, but you can't really fault Thompson. He's given them a chance to win. They're just not scoring. Now, I'm hearing rumblings they might call up Lane Hutson's brother, Cole Hutson, to make his Washington Capitals debut. And they're making it sound like this guy's going to be the savior. And I think he's probably going to have a nice little run here in the NHL, although it's not a sure thing he's going to make his debut tonight. We'll have to wait and see. But Cole Hutson looks like he will be in the lineup. They've got him on the second pairing right now on the blue line. They said they need more puck mobility, and hopefully that helps Washington. But still, we're talking about the guy's first ever NHL game. Sometimes it's going to take time to get comfortable. But I just think these two teams are in, right now, quite frankly, different places. And, earlier today, Ottawa was as low as -120, -125. I got in at -125 with Ottawa. I like them. I think they get the job done. They're 2-0 against Washington this year. They've beaten the Capitals in both games head-to-head. I just think they're playing at a higher, better level. Washington is not scoring. Ottawa should be able to shut them down. I don't even hate Washington team total under here in this game tonight with the way Ottawa's playing defensively. And you can get under 2.5 at plus money for that Capitals team total. I could see them once again being held to 2 goals or less with the nice defensive numbers we're seeing out of the Senators. But yeah, I bet Ottawa -125. Alex, what do you think here? Ottawa, Washington.
I did miss a little bit of the price. I grabbed -130 rather with Ottawa, which is still available offshore at BetOnline. But this looks like a send spot, and this is not one where I'm going with the draw, even though we've seen strong history for the last 6 meetings. But I think this is one where, like I said, 2 teams going in different directions. Washington, this is where I think the beginning of the end kind of falls for them. So, yeah, Ottawa laying the price. Don't like to lay prices a whole lot, but this particular spot where I'm seeing just a clear mismatch of team, better team, cheap price, back Ottawa.
Good stuff. Yeah, there's a few good goal props I like. I like Zetterlund. I like Cousins. I like Parlay Pinto for Ottawa. I even like Warren Foegele for Ottawa. I think there's some pretty solid value with all 4 of those. Pinto has had success against the Caps. Cousins, the same thing, and he scored last game. Zetterlund, same thing, and he scored last game as well. Warren Foegele scored in his last game as well for the Senators against San Jose, and he's had some success against the Capitals in the past as well. So, like I said, definitely I think those are some good value goal prop options for the Ottawa Senators here tonight in this game against Washington that are worth a look. Like I've said, Ullmark and Thompson, your goaltenders. And like I said, there's a big opportunity. And, I like the mentality. The media was trying to prop up the Sens after the San Jose win. And Travis Green said, I don't want to hear any of it. We got a lot of work to do. I know we're playing well, but, the other teams aren't helping us out very much. When you see Columbus winning a lot and you see Boston still getting points even when they lose, and Montreal and, Buffalo just keeps on piling up wins. And, they know that there's still a lot of work to be done, and they have to keep winning if they're going to get in. Because it feels like, look, 7-1-2 for Ottawa in their last 10 games Do you know where they are right now out of a wild card spot? Believe it or not, still 5 points out. They've just been able to gain very little ground, even though they've won 7 of their last 10 games, Ottawa. So they know that they've got to keep the foot on the gas pedal, and they have beaten Washington pretty soundly in both games this year. Meanwhile, Washington, 74, they're 8 back. They may talk the talk like they've still got a chance, but I think they're too far back, and they're just not playing well enough. And they look slow again. And poor Ovechkin, man, I'm starting to think this could be his last year. It would be tough to see him go out on a down year like this, but you can see it clearly. Like it's been rough to see him in the state he's in right now, Ovechkin, because it's been how long has it been since he scored? It's been a decent amount now, and it's you can tell. Father Time's knocking on the great 8's door, unfortunately.
Yeah, and when you look at this, like you said, this Ottawa team, even to be 5 points back, but still be on a streak, that's the key. We talk about it in both playoff races. There hasn't been any streaking teams. The only streaking teams that you're seeing right now in the East are Ottawa and Columbus. Columbus with a 10-game streak of at least earning a point, and like I said, Ottawa with that mark. So these are the two teams where if they can continue to ride that momentum, and you can catch a downtrodden Red Wings team who seems to be falling out of the race, you can catch one of the two teams that fall out potentially between a Boston or a Montreal, and you're right back in the mix.
Yeah, no question. So it should be interesting there to see if Ottawa can keep this nice little run that they've got going. All right, next up, second game on the TNT doubleheader. What a dandy this should be. First place showdown in the Central, Dallas and Colorado. What a missed opportunity for Dallas. What a tough time to see their streak of consecutive game point streak end against Utah. The same night where simultaneously Colorado's getting drubbed by Pittsburgh. They had a chance to pick up even more ground, but they missed that opportunity. Well, here's another chance head-to-head facing this Avs team. Colorado minus 145, home favorites, 6 the total. I mean, from getting your ass kicked at home and a bounce-back situation, and from a situational standpoint, I mean, the spot does scream Colorado, but they've had their hands full with Dallas. To me, the value is with Dallas at plus 125 in this game. Colorado did finally beat Dallas in the regular season. Dallas has had their number, and we know in the playoffs that's been the case. But finally, Colorado got the better of Dallas in the last meeting earlier this month, 12 days ago, in Dallas. 5-4 shootout win for the Avs in that game. They came back as well. They were down 3-2 after the first period, and they were able to come back and win in a shootout. But I know Colorado's pissed about the Pittsburgh game, and I certainly expect them to play better, but I'm not laying minus 145 against Dallas. I'm very tempted to take Dallas, but what I like even more with this game, and we've talked about this with whenever Dallas and Colorado have played each other, it's a goal explosion. It's a goal fest. It's been remarkable. 4-1 to the first period over in the last 5 regular season meetings. That's excluding the playoff games, and the playoff games have trended more over as well. But regular season, 5 meetings, the last 2 seasons combined, 4-1 to the first period over. Perfect 5-0 to the full game over. We've seen 4 of those 5 games have both teams scoring in the first period, and we've actually seen 3 of those 5 games go past regulation between these two teams. So I'm going to sprinkle on Dallas a little bit, plus 125. The primary bets here are over trifecta. That's right, over trifecta. First period over. First period, both teams to score. Full game over 6 at minus 120. And then I'm also getting in on this draw as well, which I like quite a bit. I mean, we've seen both meetings this season between the Stars and the Avs go past regulation. And I'm going to go a step further and go with Colorado and Dallas. Correct score 5-4, both teams. And if one hits, we're going to be profitable because one of the games was 5-4 Dallas, and the other one, the most recent head-to-head matchup, was 5-4 Colorado. So I'm going to just sprinkle a couple bucks on that as well. Dallas correct score 5-4, Colorado correct score 5-4. Why not? When it's been 5-4 in each of the previous 2 meetings this season. But Alex, this is a dandy with the great John Forsland on the call as well. Yeah. I can't wait to watch this. Dallas, Colorado.
It's funny. We have a lot of things in lockstep with this game. Now you have that's full game correct score, not 60-minute correct score, correct? Right?
That's
With
full
the
game.
5
Full game
Okay.
correct score.
Right.
Yes.
And both of those prices are 30-1 because I have a 60-minute correct score bet where I'm going with the 4-4 draw.
I could do that too. I might
Yeah.
add that too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Get
so
greedy.
that option is available plus 2,200 if you want the 4-4 draw, 30-1 if you want either team to win 5-4 in regulation or at any point, just to count as a correct score. But I'm right there with you on the over trifecta. A little heavier on the first period, both teams to score in first period over. Looks because it wouldn't shock me if this one maybe slows down a little bit, being that this is such a battle for, like I said, division supremacy. Obviously, these are just two rivals, two teams that don't like each other. But I could definitely see the goals at least starting off early. Maybe we see defense kind of take over later in this contest. And like I said, grab the draw as well. We've seen both games not only go past regulation into overtime, but also in the shootouts as well. So big game, should be a fun one. And like I said, this is definitely one of those entertaining kind of matchups that we hope to live up to the hype of being a potential playoff preview at some point. So like I said, yeah, over trifecta, draw, and a little bit of correct score 4-4. That's 60-minute correct score for me at 22-1.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it's been fun games. Always seems to be with these two teams in action. It is going to be a shame that obviously we still have Mikko Rantanen out of the lineup for Dallas. Would have been great to see him playing this game against his old team once again. I know Colorado's thrilled. They're not going to see him because he's certainly done some damage against the Avalanche in the past. A certain Game 7 in the first round comes to mind last year, where Mikko Rantanen just said, all right, I'm taking over and I'm leading us to victory in the series in the third period. One of the all-time great third period performances in a Game 7 you'll ever see from Mikko Rantanen last year, but he will not be suiting up for Dallas tonight. As far as props for this game, I've been talking about a lot of the same players for Dallas, but they're all, I think, worthy of looking at as far as goal props tonight. You got Maverick Bourque on the top line. There's value. Sam Steele's been great. He scored the other night again, playing with Duchesne and Benn. Jamie Benn, the captain's kind of stepped things up of late as well. So there's multiple options here for the Dallas Stars. For Colorado, looks like Big Val Nichushkin, Nathan McKinnon, and Marty Necas will be the second line. A little bit of a tweak here from Bednar. Kadri, Nelson, and Nick Waugh. Looks like that's going to be your second line. And Nick Waugh might be worth a look here, considering being on that second line tonight for the Colorado Avalanche. So those are some props there that are of interest for me here with Dallas, Colorado. All right, next up, we've got St. Louis, Calgary. St. Louis minus 120, road favorites, 5.5 the total. Oh, yeah, goaltending. Scott Wedgwood is confirmed for Colorado. Of course, he got pulled in the last game facing his old team, the Dallas Stars. I like that he's getting another chance. Jake Ottinger, projected, not confirmed yet, though, for the Dallas Stars. And Colton, Landeskog's still out. Lehkonen still out for Colorado. They're not going to play tonight, not going to return. And it looks like Ross Colton, he's the one that still might have a chance to play tonight for Colorado, but that isn't confirmed at the moment. St. Louis minus 120 here against Calgary, 5.5 the total. Yeah, I like St. Louis here. I lost with them against Winnipeg. It was frustrating. They deserved the better fate in that game. I think the shots were like 30-15, 32-15 for St. Louis, but they just couldn't put the puck in the net. And they ended up losing a frustrating one where they outplayed Winnipeg, but didn't have the win to show for it. But now you've got this St. Louis team looking to bounce back. They still have not dropped 2 in a row, I believe, since the Olympic break. No, they have not. They're 2-0 off a loss since the Olympic break. Coming off that loss to Winnipeg, they have completely owned Calgary. They've won 9 straight games versus the Calgary Flames, 9-1 in their last 10 meetings versus Calgary. And they catch Calgary in a brutal spot, terrible Calgary spot. 5 straight on the road, all on the East Coast, all in the Eastern time zone. Washington, New York Rangers, New Jersey, Islanders, Red Wings. They go 1-4 on that road trip, and now they're back home for that dreaded first game off the road trip. So this is St. Louis, but this is St. Louis for me in multiple forms. Give me first goal, first period. Give me first period money line, and give me that full game money line with the St. Louis Blues here, minus 120. Beautiful spot for them. They're the better team right now anyway, in better form. They've owned Calgary. Calgary's off an Eastern road trip. They're off a loss, St. Louis, and they haven't lost 2 in a row since the Olympic break. What the hell could go wrong here? Give me the Blues. First goal, first period money line, full game money line. Alex, Blues, Flames.
I grabbed full game money line. I actually got minus $1.15 earlier this morning, but I still like it at $1.20. Normally we say try to stay away from game involving two bad teams, but St. Louis has been a great team, like you said, since the Olympic break, playing with momentum, and like I said, take what the books are giving you. So at this cheaper price, back St. Louis. But I also will add that first goal, first period look as well.
Looks like tonight we should see, I think, Hofer, because it was Binnington on. Yeah, it is Hofer. Hofer and Devin Cooley will get the start here for the Calgary Flames. We've noted this with Devin Cooley. I mean, you could tell it's kind of like Bussy with Carolina. It's happening with Cooley as well with Calgary. He's not been as good post-Olympic break. Starting to give up more goals. He gave up 6 against Washington. He gave up 3 on just 10 shots against the New York Islanders in the last game he played. So, Devin Cooley's running out of steam a little bit here. Now, and then they've gotten great mileage out of him this season. He should still be proud of the season he's put together for Calgary to this point, but there's no doubt Devin Cooley, post-Olympic break, has not been as sharp as pre-Olympic break version of Devin Cooley. As far as goal props, yeah, Holloway, absolutely. We'll go with Dylan Holloway here for the St. Louis Blues. I don't mind Pius Suter. We talked about constantly going to the well with Robert Thomas, with Jimmy Snuggerud. I have no issues looking with them. Dalibor Dvorsky, too. He scored last game for the St. Louis Blues. Keep in mind, this guy has still got some offensive punch, had a pretty solid Olympics, so I might go in that direction as well as far as a goal prop. There is one goal prop I do like for Calgary here tonight, and it's Coronado. And it's simply, the guy couldn't buy a goal. Finally saw one go in the last game for Calgary against Detroit, and maybe he finally, you know what it's like for a good goal scorer, and he can shoot the puck. He is a good goal scorer, and he probably will be a good goal scorer in this league for a long time. When you finally snap the drought, sometimes the floodgates start to open. So just one of those momentum situations where I like to bet good goal scorers when they finally snap a drought. And that's what I'm going to do with Matt Coronado here tonight for Calgary. All right, last game for this Wednesday slate, Philadelphia and Anaheim. We've got Anaheim minus 150, home favorites, 6.5 the total here in this game. This is a tough spot for Anaheim. They've been on the road for a very long time. This is their first home game back. It's certainly not a plus Ducks spot by any stretch of the imagination. So it'd be interesting to see how it plays out here in this one. I believe for one, yeah, it is, of course. They only play each other twice, once in Philly and once in Anaheim. This is Trevor Zegras' return to Anaheim. For the very first time now as a member of the Philadelphia Flyers. Of course, Cutter Gauthier already made his return to Philly earlier this year when they played in January, but now Trevor Zegras will get a chance to play his old team back in Anaheim for the first time. So if you buy into that angle, you could go with Trevor Zegras props tonight in whether it's goal prop, points prop, shots on goal, you name it. Often we like those kind of angles with players in this kind of a situation. You look at Philadelphia, back-to-back games were decided by 1 goal, and both of them go into a shootout. They beat Minnesota 3-2. They lose to Columbus 2-1 in a shootout in their last game on Saturday. This is actually a pretty solid scheduling advantage for Philadelphia because Anaheim's coming off the 4-game road trip through Winnipeg, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal. And I guess they did still have a couple days because they played Sunday in Montreal. Monday, Tuesday off, playing tonight. So it's actually not bad for Anaheim. But for Philadelphia, they've been off since Saturday. So they've had a lot of time to get out west, get to the Pacific time zone, adjust the body clock, get acclimated. So it's the schedule makers did a real solid to Philadelphia here. Gave them a lot of time to get accustomed here to the being out west. And we know the Anaheim Ducks, when you look at what we saw from them, especially on the road trip, they gave up the first goal to Toronto. Obviously, they gave up the first goal to Ottawa because they got shut out in that game. The Montreal game, they did score the first goal, but the last couple before that, they did not. We'll see how they fare here. I kind of think the Flyers' first goal, first period. I like that. I don't trust them for the game fully. Philadelphia at +1. I lean +130 with Philadelphia because it is such a good advantage for them in the schedule, but I really like the first goal, first period way more than the full game. Here in this one. I think Philly can get on the board early, catch Anaheim in that first 20 minutes off that East Coast swing where they could be most vulnerable. I think Dan Vladar is going to start for the Flyers, not confirmed. It will be Lukas Dostal for the Anaheim Ducks. That is confirmed. But that's the main bet here for me. I'm going to go with first goal, first period, and I probably have to sprinkle on the draw simply because we've got a Philadelphia team that's now gone past regulation, 2 straight games, 3 of the last 5, 5 of the last 9. That's a pretty strong body of work of games going past regulation. And you've got your classic East versus West situation. Anaheim doesn't care if Philly gets a point. Philly doesn't care if Anaheim gets a point. So that's what I'm rocking with. First goal, first period, Philadelphia, and a little bit on the draw. Alex, what do you think, Philadelphia, Anaheim?
Yeah, I didn't get to the draw here, even though, like I said, those are some strong trends backing Philly. I do like that Philly first goal, first period look. Plus 145, the better price available with that at FanDuel. Like I said, with Anaheim coming home off of a long road trip, that just naturally seems to be kind of something worth playing. But this is one I'm going to wait for live. Maybe grab Anaheim live, trailing. Of course, that's been a hot spot live all year long when you have Anaheim trailing, especially late in the second or third period. To maybe jump on them and get them at a plus price. But only thing pregame for me is Flyers first goal, first period.
Yeah, Troy Terry's good to go. At least it appears that way to me because he's on the RotoWire line combinations. So it looks like Troy Terry will play here for Anaheim tonight. There was a little bit of concern maybe he would not, but looks like he will be good to go as far as this game tonight. Prop-wise, I'll just mention, look, Cutter Gauthier, obviously, against the Flyers. He's got an axe to grind. I think he did score. Yeah, he did score against Philly in Philadelphia. I remember very early in that game, Cutter Gauthier scored for Anaheim against the team he wanted to be dealt from. It wouldn't shock me to see Gauthier score again versus them. I think Alex Bump, he scored last game. And he's it's fitting his last name is Bump because he's been bumped up the lineup lately by Rick Tocchet. He's playing on the second line. So Alex Bump, there's some value. Terry did score last game, by the way, for the for the Anaheim Ducks. But those are some of the props I'd be interested in here for this one with the Philadelphia Flyers taking on the Anaheim Ducks. Great stuff. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button. Appreciate it very much. This is a good Wednesday card. Like I said, even though there's only 6 games tonight, we got quality over quantity. 3 of these games are slobber knockers. Rippa, as the Aussies would say, this game. Pittsburgh, Carolina. Obviously, it goes without saying, Dallas, Colorado. And Ottawa, Washington, I think is a pretty good game, too. So, like I said, looking forward to this Wednesday slate. Check out wizardsportspicks.com. NCAA tournament. March Madness is here. Great handicappers on the site. I'm number 1 in college basketball and NHL at Wizard Sports Picks. So get on some daily premium picks and also 3-day, 7-day, 30-day, 1-year all sports, all access passes available. Check that out, wizardsportspicks.com. And of course, patreon.com/iceguys, $10 per month. Goalie charts, totals charts, daily betting card, sides, totals, player props posted each and every day on the Patreon page. We are going to have a ton of Patreon exclusive members only live betcasts coming up as well in April and beyond. So you're going to want to get on board as a Patreon member before the end of the month. And also that $50 off Dub Club 1 month all sports subscription with me is still available. That discount for Patreon Ice Guys members only. That discount offer posted on the page. So you can still take advantage of that. $10 per month. All of that and more at patreon.com/iceguys.
And don't forget to check out the Ice Guys store, iceguys.myspreadshop.com, and get hoodies, t-shirts, caps, mugs, all kind of wonderful merchandise right now at the Ice Guys store. Definitely check that on out. It's over at iceguys.myspreadshop.com.
There you go. Get on board with some great gear and merch at the Ice Guys store. And yes, thank you to Rich for mentioning that in the chat about the free-for-all betcast. It's a great segue to actually remind everybody right now that, yes, we are with you for a free-for-all live betcast open to everybody next Tuesday, March 24th, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern. Looking forward. That's a great NHL slate next Tuesday night. There's no college basketball at all next Tuesday as well. So the slate is clean to focus and dial in on NHL hockey. Very much looking forward to next Tuesday, the live betcast. So again, DM or email me or Alex for a spot on the Betcast, and we'll send you the link to it before it begins. Apparently, the Minnesota Golden Gophers have fired longtime head coach Bob Motzko.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people are thinking
that
needed to happen. Yeah, you're right. I don't think the program has been necessarily going in the right direction here this last year or two. So I could see why they're making a coaching change there. And by the way, Frozen Four, don't sleep on that. That's going to be around the corner too. And a lot of the conference tournament stuff.
Vegas this year, right?
I think so. With that, you're right. So T-Mobile, the site of the Frozen Four college hockey tournament. Looking forward to that for sure. I always make a point of watching that. I am in and out of watching college hockey during the season, but I always make it appointment television to put the Frozen Four on one of my screens. No question. All right, we got Bargain Bin Special of the night. We cashed one with Frankie Nazar from Alex last night. We'll see if we can add to it with Bargain Bin Special of the night and Best Bets coming up right after we hear from our great Ice Guy sponsors.
Wizard Sports Picks, featuring the finest handicappers in the universe. Sharp insights, trusted picks, and relentless results. We strive to help you become consistent winners. This is Wizard Sports Picks.
All right, before we get to Bargain Bin Special of the night, it just popped in my head as the ads were running. I forgot to mention it when we talked about the Anaheim game. Bon voyage and a happy retirement. Steve Carroll, the longtime radio voice of the Anaheim Ducks since, I think, 1999. He's been the radio voice of the Ducks. So he hasn't been there from the inception, but pretty damn close. You know, just when they were starting to get good, you know, that first run they made to the Cup final with a young Mike Babcock and Paul Correa. And Steve Ruchin and all of those Anaheim teams, J.S. Shiger getting jiggy with it in net. He basically just became the play-by-play guy a few years before those Ducks teams. And then, of course, he was able to call the one Stanley Cup victory in 2007 when they beat Ottawa in the Stanley Cup final. But Steve Carroll, longtime voice of the team, radio voice of the team, retiring after the season. Great. And if you listen to any clips of him doing play-by-play, just that classic old school, you know, broadcaster voice, good cadence for hockey, pretty rock solid play-by-play broadcaster for hockey. He's a guy that did some other sports too. He did minor league baseball. He did high school basketball. He's done some other sports as well. But primarily, he's been doing Anaheim Ducks games on radio for the last, 26 years, 27 years. So he's calling it a career. Another one of the good ones, Alex, hanging up the microphone. It continues to be sad to see all the greats of the past, and we're losing them one by one.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, that's a voice I'm sure a lot of people in the Orange County area, a lot of Ducks fans are, like I said, certainly acclimated to. So hopefully he has a great retirement. What a hell of a season to wrap it up on, as we see the Ducks kind of resurge after having this long rebuild.
Yep. Yeah, great. Teemu Solani. I knew, Velu from Finland would mention Teemu, of course. Yeah, long-time Duck. Great career there, of course. And the Chris Pronger was there. You know, those teams, Scott Niedermayer, the Cup team I'm thinking of, a young Corey Perry, a young Ryan Getzlaff. Yeah, I remember that team well. One of the better checking lines, I remember Sammy Paulson, Rob Niedermayer. And who the hell was the other guy on that line? I always forget the other. It was Rob Niedermayer. It was Samuel Paulson. And it was someone else on that. It was a great checking line. Not good, great checking line at playoff time for the Anaheim Ducks that year. No question. And there you go, Jonathan, with great things to say about Steve Carroll. Yeah, Jonathan would have encountered Steve quite a bit, all those Kings Ducks games over the years, of course. So happy trails and all the best to Steve as he retires at the end of the season. All right, Bargain Bin Special of the night. We got 6 games on tap to choose from. Alex, what do you got for Bargain Bin Special of the night?
I've got 2 of them tonight. First, we will start with the Battle of Capitals. You've got the capital city of Canada, Ottawa, taking on the capital city of the U.S., D.C. I'm going with Claude Giroux to get a goal for Ottawa and you can get him plus 370 anytime goal scorer over at FanDuel. I just feel like this is a spot where veteran guy, trying to push for the playoffs. I think he steps up and steps in with a goal here. So a plus 370. Claude Giroux will be my first bargain bin special. My second one will be, of course, from that Dallas-Colorado game. Excited to see that one. We're expecting goals both ways. And I'm going right back to but Thomas Harley, anytime goal scorer plus 725. Didn't get one the other night when I had him. I think he may be able to cash in tonight. We always see him come through the big goal, usually against a big-time opponent. This would be the perfect spot for it. So plus 725, Thomas Harley anytime goal for the Dallas Stars is my second bargain bin special.
All right, excellent. So there we go. A couple of bargain bin specials here for Alex on this Wednesday night NHL slate. As far as a bargain bin special here for me on this Wednesday, there's definitely a couple that stand out. I think we're going to start with. I'm going to go to someone from the Dallas Stars, not Thomas Harley, but someone that Matt Robinson's had some good success with. I'm going to take a shot with him tonight. Give me Sammy Steele, plus 650 for the Dallas Stars tonight against the Colorado Avalanche. I think there's a solid chance we could see him find the back of the net for Dallas here in this game tonight. And another one that I will go with here for bargain bin special of the night. This is down the board, but Noel Acciari, Pittsburgh, plus 950. I mean, I've seen a lot of Pittsburgh lately, and all I see is Noel Acciari, despite being on the fourth line, always around the net and almost putting the puck in. And he's done it now in back-to-back games, and he's had chances before going back further. So I think he's got a real chance tonight, and the price is definitely more than bargain bin worthy. So Noel Acciari, Pittsburgh, plus 950, and Sam Steele, Dallas, plus 650 for my two bargain bin specials here for this Wednesday night. All right, best bets. Alex, what do you got for best bet?
Yeah, we'll go down to Raleigh and look at that game with Pittsburgh and Carolina. And we cashed with this style of play last night with Boston and Montreal. We'll go right back to the well with both teams to score in the first period with the Paynes and Canes. Plus 164 is the best price available for that. So Pittsburgh and Carolina, both teams to score in the first period, my best bet tonight.
All right, good one. And that was a great call last night for Alex with Montreal-Boston. First period over his best bet, going back to another BTTS first period look, Pittsburgh and Carolina for his Wednesday best bet. We're going to hit one of these days. Hopefully it's tonight. Give me Ottawa. Minus 125 is still out there at a couple places against Washington, although most books have 30 to 35 right now with Ottawa. I like them. I think they're just the better team in better form. They've beaten Washington twice this year, and I think they beat Washington again tonight. Ottawa Senators, minus 125 against the Washington Capitals for my best bet. Shout out to everyone in the chat at the like button. We appreciate it very much. The Patreon card will be up later, patreon.com/Ice Guys, sides, totals, player props. And again, that $50 off discount at Dub Club with All Sports with me is still there as well, only for Patreon members. Patreon page. We got betcasts galore coming up in April for Patreon members only. So now's a good time to sign up. So make sure you check that out. A reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. Download the Ice Guys podcast when you can't watch the show live. For Alex B. Smith, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Wednesday night. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we will see you tomorrow on Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern for another edition of the Ice Guys.